Hello. I want to welcome you to this segment of 5 Minutes with KeRusso. Ours is going to be longer than 5 minutes today because this is a Wednesday extra. You're aware of that if you tune into these Wednesday extras. I want to do something different today. I'm not going to actually go into a book of the Bible, but I'm going to talk to you about some books, though. But I want to relate it to the times that we're going through. We're really going through what I would say just uncertain times. The pandemic, the virus, the social upheaval, all this stuff that's going on, the economics, really is just it's a lot. It's a lot. Now, this is not new for nations. This stuff happens to nations, and it's happened to our nation before. Not so much in the forms it's taken now, but uncertainty is part of life in a nation. It always is there. We sometimes lose sight of that. But if you talk to the older people in our society, you can talk to them about what their life is. They can tell you about times that are just as tumultuous and uncertain as today is for us. But we're going through it right now, and so it just seems stressful, and it probably is to so many people. Well, when you go through times like this, you start thinking about your life and you start thinking about your future. And if you have family, especially if you have children, you spend a lot of time thinking about their future, and you pray about that a lot if you happen to be a believer in God. And you want something to be certain. Well, can there be something certain? That's what I really want to share with you. And this really is it's for anybody, but I'm going to tune in to people who have children or who want children or who will have children one day. I'm going to talk to you as a parent. Now, when I was a kid and I was in grade school, we had boys had different ideals about girls. Girls had different ideals about boys. For girls, boys were gross. And for boys, girls had cooties, Now, I don't know what kids in grade school say about one another, the opposite sex nowadays. I doubt they use those words, but I think they're probably on the same wavelength. They're just, stay away from stay away from girls, stay away from boys, stay away from the opposite sex. But you get past that, and you start getting a different idea. Girls are no longer cootie carriers or germ carriers. They're kind of good looking. They're attractive. You want to hang out with them. And boys are, wow, they're not just smelly anymore. They're not gross. I kind of like, girls. I want to hang around that guy. Well, that happens. And what happens is people start to fall in love, to love one another. And they start talking about having a future together and having a family together. And many of them go in that direction. Now, let me just kind of say this right now. You don't have to be married to have a fulfilled life and to have a great life. You don't have to have children to have a fulfilled life or a great life and a life of purpose. There are wonderful people who live single or who are married and have no children, and they are just blessed. So that might be a choice. Now, sometimes people want to get married and they don't get married. They just never find that person. Or they want to have children and they're not able to have children. And there's sadness in that, and I really am sad when I encounter people who are in that part of their life. But what I say right now is not to demean the life of a single person or childless couples, because those lives are special. But I do want to say something to those who have children or who want to have children or still have that dream of having children and one day will. How do you raise those children knowing that they're going to go through uncertain times like you and I are going through now? It seems like everything's kind of shifting sand. There's nothing solid to put your feet on. And I'm going to talk to you about an event in my life, and actually a couple of events in my life. In August 1990, my wife and I were were blessed. Well, let me back up a little bit. 1 month in July 1990, uh, my grandfather died. My mom's father died, and that was pretty rough. And I couldn't go there to be there for the funeral because my wife was 8 months pregnant. And the next month, our first child was born, a little girl named Whitney. And so we went from really being sad to really rejoicing. Now, 6 months after that, in February 1991, my dad, my father, was diagnosed with cancer, and he died in June 1991 of that cancer. And so we were really just hurting, a lot of uncertainty there. And I remember being back home after my father's funeral, and I was sitting in my office, and I'm just thinking, just thoughts running through my head. And one of the thoughts that occurred to me, my dad died when he was 55. In June 1991, I was 33. I had a daughter who was less than a year old. Who's to say I wouldn't die when I was 55 or even before then? And if I did, my daughter would be in her early 20s. And she would be feeling the loss then that I was feeling with my dad being gone. And that was very unsettling for me. And I thought, well, what do I do? How do I prepare for that in case that happens to me? In case I don't live past 55, or if I die younger than that. Now, I didn't. I'm going to give you a hint. I'm talking to you, so I didn't. I had a book on my shelf, and the title of the book is Always Daddy's Girl. I don't have that book on my shelf anymore because this thought came to my mind and I did something with it. The book was it's a book about, it's a counseling book. When you have a young lady who grew up in a family where she didn't have the relationship with her dad that she wanted to have, she's still daddy's girl, but she never really was daddy's girl, but she's always going to be daddy's girl. She just didn't get the relationship, And so it was a counseling book on how do you help somebody get through that. That really didn't relate to me and my daughter who's under a year old, but I love the title. So what I did is I took the book off my shelf and I started to read it, and I underlined notes in it. I underlined statements and underlined them and highlighted things that I wanted her to pay attention to. And in the margins on the pages, I would write notes to her, and I would say, "Dear Whitney," and I would write whatever was on my heart that day. And then I would date it when I was done. I would sign my name, Dad, and I would date it. And I would get index cards, and I would write notes on index cards and insert those in the pages. And I would date those. And I went all the way through the book, and I did that. And my thinking was this: I was going to set that book aside and give it to her on her 16th birthday. On her 16th birthday, I would give it to her. And then, I figured maybe I need all the help I can get because she's 16, she's a teenage girl. She might not want to listen to Dad at that time, but if I give her a book like that, she'd read it, and she'd read all the notes, and she'd read all the I highlighted stuff and whatever. Well, she just might still listen to me. So I'm looking for any advantage I could, because I knew what it was like when I turned 16. I was a pain for my parents. So I'm thinking this could help my daughter. But more important than that, it was a way to make sure that I could share with her my heart for her and the life that I wanted her to have in case I wasn't going to be around. So that when she was going through her uncertain times, she would be able to remember some of those things. And maybe something I would say to her in that book would help her out. And so I did that. I went through the book, I put all the notes in it, I put it in an envelope and sealed it and put on there, give to Whitney on her 16th birthday, put it in a drawer. And it sat there for 16 years. On her 16th birthday, the day before, I pulled it out, and that there was another place in the book in the back where I had written nothing, and I wrote another note for her on that day, the day of her 16th birthday, or the day before, and I dated it. And I put it in wrapping paper, and that's what I gave to her on her 16th birthday. Now, we were blessed by God with a second daughter, Shannon. I did the same thing with her. The book I used for her was called The Blessing. Then God blessed us a few years after that with a son. His name is Jake. And I bought a book for him. The name of that book is A Tender Warrior. And I presented that to him on his 16th birthday. And God blessed us with another child, a little girl, and her name is Jenna. This actually is the book I got for Jenna, A Woman's Touch. And if I were to open it up, you can see all the different notes that I wrote in there and pieces of paper. I didn't use index cards then. I used pieces of paper, and I stuck them in the pages there. So as she's reading through the book, she'll come across those notes. On the back, on the book jacket, that's where I wrote a note for her on her 16th birthday. I put a lot of work in doing this for my 4 children, and it got to be that when they turned 16, this was the gift that they were looking forward to. And I'm glad for that. The notes that I wrote, if you ever run across one of my children, you could ask them. They might share them with you. That's up to them. But I wanted to, more than anything, to try to help them build a life that was anchored in God, where they were hanging on tight to God, just like Seth and his children and his descendants. I wanted them to hang on to God, because he can be that rock that you can build a life on that's going to withstand any storm, no matter what uncertainties are surrounding you. And I wanted my children to know that. The most precious gifts that God ever gave me were my wife and my 4 children. And the most precious gift I can give to my wife and to my 4 children is a relationship with God, or a way to have a relationship with God, and hope that they would choose that. And that's what these books were about. Now, I ended up being around to be able to give those books to my children on their 16th birthday. And like I said, I'm still here today. But that's what I needed to do. God gave me that idea. I share that with some people. Wow, that's a really great idea. Can I do that? Well, sure, you can do it too. Pick your own books. Find the ones you want that have a message. Write your own notes and messages to your children. You pick your day. If you're Hispanic, it might be a quinceañera instead of 16th birthday. Or there might be, in your family history, there might be another day that's really important. But pick a day that you can give it to your children. But here's the deal. Find some way. If God blesses you with children, find some way to set their feet in the direction where, instead of wandering away from God, they're going to hang on tight to him. No matter what happens to them, you can't guarantee them a safe life. You can't guarantee them a life that is always going to have everything good. In fact, you can just be pretty much guaranteed it's not going to be safe. Everything's not going to be good. They're going to have storms. They're going to go through uncertainties. Some of it's not going to rise to what we're dealing with now. Some of it's going to far exceed what you and I are dealing with now. And you love your children. Or if they don't have them yet, when they come around, you're going to love them. And the best gift you can give them is God. So that's my little segment today. I hope what I've shared with you is a blessing. Find your way to set your children's feet on that path. And if you want to make a comment, leave a comment, please feel free to do that. If you want to borrow my idea, it's not my idea. I think it came from God. Use it. If you want to send me an email, feel free to do that at booksbykerusso@gmail.com. May God bless your life. May He bless those that He gives you. And may you be a blessing to them as well. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day.